Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. And today we are going to talk about reminiscing and how that starts to push us forward. And when we start to reminisce, when we're starting to be pushed forward, but instead of our normal take on it, which is reminiscing about good stuff or stuff that we have fond memories of, we're going to talk about why we reminisce or dwell on things that were not positive in a sense of how our human would segregate them. You know, our human's going to segregate them into positive or negative. But our higher self doesn't do that. It's just something that is weighing us down. It is tying us to the memory carries an emotion that's weighing us down to another reality. And when we're starting to switch dimensions, i.e. switch reality, our body wants to clear it. And if it hasn't been able to clear it yet, it will clear it in stages. So you might have someone remember something that happened decades ago, you know. You might yourself remember something that happened decades ago, and something you might have dwelled on for decades about it. But every time you work through a little piece of it, but every time you go through it, it's something that has separated you off. It's something you're not settled with. It's something you're not okay with. And part of you is still stuck there. And that is why you see it so much when right before you see a big shift. And we focus more on the positives. Here we talk about, oh, you're going to reminisce and nostalgia and all that, which is a big reason why a lot of the country is going through the big nostalgia phase we've had, where everything's getting remade and redone and rebooted, and everyone's kind of bringing stuff back to bring up that feeling. Now, when we're remembering the good stuff, the happier stuff, and I'm going to use happy and good just to show how our human's going to view it, but our soul doesn't view it that way. Our soul doesn't segregate it, doesn't view it as one or the other. It just views it as something that's in the body. You know, now if it's a memory that is happy, the emotion of the happiness can push us. You know, it can push us forward. It can raise our vibration enough when we remember that memory. It raises us enough to get to the next level, to jump. You know, a lot of times you'll see it as quantum jumping. You're going to now get to that next reality, get to that next phase in your life. So you're going to kind of jump forward, and that feeling can kind of propel you forward, and that feeling is tied to the memory. That's all really memories are. There's a feeling that's the important thing. The memory itself was just something to create that memory, right? To create that emotion. That's what that memory was. And that's why when we start to jump, we start to forget certain things. You know, you'll find after a time that memory that you would remember that would propel you forward in a happy way, you might forget a couple realities from now, because now you don't require that. Now you're setting at that happy memory point. Your vibration is your body vibration is at a different set point now. So now that memory doesn't hold a purpose, so we forget them. You know, and technically in the reality you're in, it never occurred anyway, right? Because you're now in a totally different space. You're in a different frequency where that didn't occur like that, or it didn't occur the way you remember it. Because in this reality, it occurred differently. And the same thing when you're looking at dwelling on something that wasn't pleasant for our human experience, that we're upset about. You know, I was talking to someone the other day that was saying that they were up all night, couldn't sleep because they kept remembering something that happened decades ago, and they're so mad about it. It made them mad, and they were just up all night because their body's trying to clear that anger. It's trying to clear that anger that's attached to that memory to get the body's vibration to the next step. You know, to get it to that next point where it can now exist in a higher vibration. And those are not relevant frequencies. It's not a frequency they can hold anymore. So whether they've dwelled on this for maybe the past 20, 30 years, doesn't so much matter. They've worked through it piece by piece by piece by piece, and this is either going to be the last piece of it, or it's going to be the final, or just another level of it. And only they will know that, and how much they're going to continue to create the story, recreate the story, or eventually you get to where the story doesn't matter. But for human consciousness, people really ingrained in that human consciousness still, it takes a lot longer. That's how we can be talking at things that happened decades ago, and whether it's us or we around people that focus on something that could have happened decades ago, and it's still right in that consciousness, because it's like, I remember when that happened. I remember when this happened. Because part of them is still there. And the body is not only trying to purge that emotion that's not aligned with the new frequency the body's trying to reach, it's also trying to merge it. You know, it's trying to bring it back in, bring that piece of yourself that's back in that moment, and frozen kind of in that moment because it was such a time to say, it was so hard to process it, right? A lot of times these things will happen no matter what it was, and we'll all have a moment like that. We will go back and revisit it, and when we're going through different parts of ascension, we might relive that moment, you know, over and over and over again for a while, because part of us kind of separated off there. We kind of got stuck there. We got, you know, human traumatized there. It was too much. We couldn't handle it. We couldn't process it all. We were so angry. We were so hurt. We were so this. We were so that. We couldn't process it. We couldn't move forward in a sense. So we kind of might have got upset about it at the moment, but more or less we kind of just bought it in, made it part of our program, made it part of our patterns. We kind of doubled down on it. You know, programs are created. You know, we've had that discussion about how there's people that will say, from 0 to 7, you set your personality. You know, from 0 to 7 years old, a person's personality is set. But their programs aren't set. Their belief system gets set. And then that belief system, they keep doubling down on that belief system, which starts to create their patterns and starts to create their programs. And a pattern and a program, they're the same thing. It doesn't matter. And they just keep doubling down on it, right? Because their beliefs are set by age 7. So you spend all your time after that creating reality to reinforce those beliefs, i.e. setting up your program and setting up your patterns. So when these things happen, if we're not able to clear them at the moment, and in our human consciousness, we're not made to clear anything. We're not built to really clear anything. We're built to store everything. We're like little chipmunks, and we just take all that stuff and store it. And when you start going through your awakening, your ascension, all those kind of chickens come home to roost. We're having a lot of wildlife parodies today. A lot of wildlife catchphrases. Those chickens come home to roost, and then we have to clear all that stuff. We kind of get rid of all that stuff. We can't hold it anymore. We can't hold all that stuff in. We have to let it go. And how we do that is our universe will either bring up a situation that was similar to that, and we'll relive the program that way, or we get to a point where we just start remembering, because that frequency is no longer able for us to hold it anymore. So part of it's got to go. And like I said, you will know people who've dwelled on something for decades, and they'll bring it up every once in a while, and they'll be right back in that moment. They'll tell you the story, and they're right back in that moment because they never left that moment. They couldn't process it then, and they're still trying to work through it now. But it's part of their tuning process. It's part of their moving on. We just don't reminisce about the things that made us happy. Those are more propelling energies to kind of push us forward. But even those memories we'll forget. And you will be surprised, memories that you used to really cherish, and as you go through different dimensions of your ascension, you won't remember them anymore. You know, you won't be able to go back and really think about that time, or think about your wedding day, or think, it all gets kind of wiped away. Now you see this kind of amplified when you see the human consciousness kind of play itself to a certain point, and then people go through their ascension kind of unwillingly, in a sense. And that's not really true. I mean, it's still built into their soul contract that this was when they were going to end their human experience. Whether they're going to end it with their own ascension consciously, or they're going to, you know, go through death and then go to a different body and ascend that body. It's a choice that many are making right now. That's why you see so many people kind of choosing the latter. They're going to ascend in another body at another time, and not this current body. But you still see a lot of these things playing out. People start forgetting. They can't remember who people were, what people were doing. And that's because those memories are tying them to older dimensions. And as they are starting to increase their frequency to get ready to go, to leave their body, all those things are shed. And they just forget them. And they're moving so quick. You'll see it with a lot of people. And, you know, human consciousness is going to call it something else. But when you really look at it, it's not that much different than when you go through ascension consciously. You forget things, you don't remember, and you don't have the ties to things, you don't have the nostalgia to things. It just doesn't matter. Now, when you're going through a shift, sometimes you will remember these things. But when you really watch people who are going through it unconsciously, even though their soul plan, and on some level they understand it, but it's an unconscious shift for them. Their body's getting ready to make these transitions, and they're starting to go back and bring up things, and not just the good things. They're kind of doing their own life review, which that's another way you'll see people put it. Before you shift a dimension, you do a kind of a life review, and you remember all these amazing things, and let's talk about them. And you also start to see it on the other end. We're going to go through all these moments and all these times to go through this review, but I'm remembering the harsher things, the things that I could not deal with at the time, and maybe perhaps still cannot deal with, but I'm getting through another layer of it. I'm shedding another layer of it. That anger is coming up for me to get it out. I'm shedding something else so I can now go through and go on to my next dimensional phase. So when these things come up, it all comes up for a reason. These things happen to us. Everything happens to us for a reason. It's to evoke a feeling. Relationships evoke a feeling. The feeling is what's important. The feeling is what's deep down. All these things that happen are just to get this stuff out of our cellular memory. If you've never experienced happiness, if you don't have something to trigger happiness, you don't know what that feels like. You don't know how to tune to that vibration. That's why human happiness is different, because usually it's tied to an external thing. And one thing you learn through ascension is it cuts out all that external stuff, and you have to be able to unearth that happiness within you, which is where it was all along. The outset thing just triggered it for you. But if it never triggered it, you wouldn't know what it was. It's kind of like trying to go back to a place you've never been. If you've never experienced what happiness, that frequency feels like, you don't know where you're trying to get back to. But it can't be tied to anything else. And the same thing with these other, the memories that are not thought of as, they're more, I'm using words I don't normally use, but it's just to get the point across. The traumatic things that were very traumatic for our human, we'll start to remember those things because they're trying to clear them. It wasn't so much the thing, it was the emotion that it gave us. That's what it is. And these emotions also, remember, human consciousness, emotion pulls us forward. Emotion pushes us forward. And that's how humans react. Humans react to emotions. That's how they move. That's how we used to move. Human consciousness only reacts to emotions. It pushes them forward. It pushes them into doing something. Whether it's fear, it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to push you into doing something. Anger normally pushes you in the direction you should have gone in the first place, and you knew better, but you wait to get angry about it, and now you know what you got to do when you knew it all along. All these things kind of push us forward. They push us in a different direction. And when you start going through ascension, you start to shed that, but you can't shed that unless you clear the emotions. Bring them up. Bring them up, and the part of you that's still broken off into that time and that place and that situation. And people ask me, how do I know if I am? If you can remember everything about it, there's still part of you broken off there. There's still part of you that is stuck there in a sense. And you have to be able to see that to be able to move forward. Now, normally, by the time you can see it, you've already, in a sense, moved forward. The minute you can look at that and identify it and say, okay, I understand that now. I see what I was doing. I understand that was trapped. It's trapped in the body. It was trapped, and I needed that to come up for me to get to it. You might create a whole separate situation for yourself. It might not be remembering the same one. It might not be remembering the same one. I think the cat is also, he's ready to go out too. He's ready to get outside in the beautiful weather. So I think he's trying to tell me to wrap it up so I can get out. And now you also destroyed my train of thought. Okay. I don't remember where I was. I'll get it in a second. When we start to go through these moments, and we start to, whether you're reminiscing, and they're happy things you're reminiscing about, don't be surprised if later you can't remember them, because they don't matter. Like I said, they're just there to elicit that feeling, to push you forward, to release something. I know where I was going. Our human consciousness is drilled by emotion, right? It's fueled by emotion. It makes every decision by emotion. That's what it is. It is very reptilian brain in a sense. But our higher consciousness, our ascended consciousness, our ascended aspects, they are fueled by creation. And you're creating something new and creating something new and creating something new. That's what fuels you. That's what excites you. That's what pushes you, right? So it starts to shift. But we can't hold on to all the old stuff. And we can reminisce and enjoy it, or it can be the dwelling. And I see a lot more of the dwelling now. And you'll see that more with someone really ingrained in that human consciousness. And you might be like, boy, they've dwelled on that for decades or multiple decades. I can't believe we're still talking about something that happened 70 years ago, but we still are. It could have happened to their parents or their parents' parents, and it doesn't matter. But it's still in their cellular memory. It's still something that they're trying to clear. It's something they're trying to get rid of. They're trying to take that out of the body. So by going through it again and recreating, you see a lot of historical recreations. That's kind of a human consciousness way of trying to work through it. Even though these people weren't alive during any of these recreations, it doesn't matter. Part of them separated off there. Remember, in multidimensional realities, you were all these things. You were in all these wars. You did all these things. You were everything to everywhere. It doesn't matter. You were what? Everywhere all at once. So you're just recreating these things to elicit something, to elicit a memory, to elicit emotion, to get it out of the body. Humans will recreate it. Sometimes our human mind will just dwell and it'll come up out of nowhere. A lot of the things could be something that's so long ago and it comes up out of nowhere and you're like, I didn't even know I still gave a shit about that. But we did. It's somewhere still in there and it's coming up for a reason. Either, you want to look at this too, you're either clearing it to move forward. You're clearing it and you go, okay, now I've cleared it. Wait for something to come along very similar energetically to that to see if you really have cleared it. Are you going to do the same thing again? Are you going to be able to move forward to something else? A lot of times our universe can test us to see, are you really done with this type of energy? Are you really done with these type of situations? Are you really still holding that, holding the grudge? You used to say holding a grudge. That was a big human thing to say. You're holding a grudge. You're so mad about that. And it can be for so long ago. And we were all kind of like that for a while before we went through certain stages of our ascension. And we all know people like that. I know everyone who watches this will say, I know someone who's mad about something that happened so long ago, or still angry or upset, or just grieving something. That's another one to touch on. Grieving, the grief of that. Losing someone, whatever way it was. That's why we have all the monuments. So people can go there and grieve. Whether it's a mass grieving, like in war, where you have the mass grieving of all these collectives all at once and all these monuments for that. There are purposes for these things. There are purposes to have them here. And you can look at when some of these monuments start coming down, they don't serve a purpose for the collective anymore. Or you can look at it as maybe it's being removed so it cannot serve the collective anymore. So it can go either way. You kind of learn through your ascension process that you don't really believe anything you see. You don't really believe anything you hear, especially if it's happening in the human realities. You can kind of look at it. Normally it's exactly the opposite of what they're saying, and you move forward. Because our human consciousness is designed to keep us trapped in that moment, trapped in that box, where we cannot go forward. So just remember that. And when these things come up, it's for a reason. It is not for nothing. Your soul does nothing for nothing, okay? It doesn't have that kind of time. It is very productive, just like your ascended realities and your ascended consciousness and your ascended aspects that you're uniting within yourself. You do nothing without a purpose. And you'll start to understand that as you go through your different stages of ascension. And after a while, you will see if it has no purpose, you don't do it. It's pointless. The same thing, you have to remember that same thing in the collectives, the same thing in anybody's soul that you know. Everyone has their higher aspects. Everyone has their own journeys. Everyone is on that journey. Everyone's on a journey. But they're still doing it for a reason. And everything's being done for a reason. And everything's being done to push us forward, one way or the other. Whether it's if we go back to the monument, looking at the monuments that come down, people get upset about that. Some people are glad about that. It's still invoking an emotion. And sometimes the emotion, removing the things, is more of an emotion than can get to people more than leaving them up. So when you start to look, don't look at anything face value. Okay? If you look at something face value, you're looking at it from your human eye. These don't see anything. Eyes are not the windows to the soul, okay? That's bullshit. It's not true. You can't see anyone's soul through your human eyes. It's energetic, your energetic eye. You can say your third eye, but really your whole energetic field is what you begin to talk about. I mean, I know we talk a lot about, opening up to your field. That is how you can feel it all. That's how you expand out. That's how you get more of your soul in your body. You cannot get your soul in your body when you have all those lower vibrational frequency emotions stuck in the body. Your soul has nowhere to go, okay? That's why you see you know, when you really start to understand and really open up to it, you notice that so many souls are outside the body. They're not in the body. That's why when people are usually getting ready to go, if they're going to exit through death, all of a sudden people say, oh, they brighten right up. They look tremendous. And then they were gone like a day later. And they look great because their soul enters in the body. It's too much. And it gives them all that energy to pull them away. And then they go on to their next step and whatever they're going to do next. Wherever that soul's going to go do. So when it returns to the unified field, it then will decide where is it going to go next. So just be aware of that, and you have to see beyond it all. You know, you can hear someone reminisce about something, and you can maybe tune it out. And normally that's what I would do, or when someone's dwelling on something, I would kind of tune it out in a sense, because it's the frequencies. You know, they're so the lower frequencies, and if you hear it, even if you just pass by and hear it, but when you start to open up to what it really is doing, and well, it is interesting they're now bringing that up after so long, and they're really kind of fixated on it, and the emotions it's bringing up for them to clear. Because if they don't clear it through that memory, their universe will create another memory. So if they say, oh, it's bothering me, but I don't want to think about it. You know, I'm just going to shut that down. I don't even want to think about it. I push it down. Then their universe will then create a situation that will make them angry in a different way. It's still going to get to it. You know, you might not like that way. So if you're hit with a memory of something, even if it's not a pleasant one, ride that wave because you're hitting it for a reason. You know, the frequency is there for a reason and wants you to clear that emotion behind that memory. And if you try to fight that, your universe will give you something worse. Normally. I would say it's always worse. It's never like in that old show, Let's Make a Deal, where you might get a better deal behind the other curtain. It ain't going to be a better deal. It's going to be a much worse deal. Okay. I'm going to go let the cat out before he claws through the door. Keep practicing the art of intuition.